No. El Commissioner, the leader, the head of Age of Sigmar Worlds, as well as the captain of Team America, one of my personal wargaming heroes, Mr. Jeremy. Oh no, Veyseirre. How did I do?
No, I was like, just correction. I am not the captain. Bill is the captain this
Oh
year.
yes, sorry, you are the captain.
That's no, I'm Bill is doing all the pairing, so and he's also doing all the leadership role for team this year, and so I could focus on being commissioner. Not that my job as commissioner is very tiring because I have Tom, who's just like a master of running events. So it's not like I guess I had a vacation from both AOS Worlds and Team America in a sense this year. So
Yet managed to get credit for both. That's very
that's
efficient.
right. It's Yeah, I think that's what they call a chief executive officer in corporate America. I figured it out.
Okay, well, so you are here to represent Team America, but before we talk about that, just for a quick moment, can you just
Yeah,
go over what the job of the Commissioner for Worlds is, and also maybe like a little bit
yeah,
on what the Council does?
yeah. Of course. Uh, so the job. Well, let's focus on the council first. The council is an elected body by the captains representing, obviously the conglomeration of AS Worlds. Their jobs are, multi-tiered, but in the sense of the matter, it's to continue both the organization and the event from running. That's like fundamentally the core function. So we have some duties split between, social media lead as well as like the captain liaison, which is mostly about basically reaching out to new countries or potentially new captains and roping them into the process and what it means to be part of participating in OS Worlds. And then we have the head ref, as well as whoever basically the captain whose country wins the bid for the next year. So that's kind of in a sense the less democratically elected one, but kind of because it's through a bidding process. But that is the council outside of the commissionership, and their jobs are basically if you're the captain lead for the event that won the bid, your job is to make sure the event is basically you're the boots on the ground, making sure the event is logistically going to actually happen and it's being run successfully. The council is more focused on maintaining the resources needed for the events to happen, as well as continuing the organization as a whole. And that's where the commissioner really steps in. It's not necessarily in the event itself, but into making sure the AOS Worlds organization grows and has some kind of sustainability built into it. So one of the things we've been trying to work on is like, for example, setting up Worlds as a legal entity in Europe or anywhere else really. So that way we have some kind of formal legal protection and so forth, right? Because we're trying to grow this into a machine that will basically run itself eventually. Well, at least we're hoping, knock on wood. So we're just trying to, step by step get there. But the core function is to make sure that the processes and the charter is basically followed and the event actually happens every year, right? So
Has there
everything
been
else is superfluous.
has there been a plan in your mind to actually just dissolve the council and take real power as the commissar?
No, because the captains are insufferable. So no. No offense to the captains, but I have learned that like being commissioner is basically being like I feel like in a sense like it's like what it being leaders of the UN is without actually like a full country backing. It's like you get a lot of wagging your finger, but not a lot of say. So,
I laughed out loud a little bit. I cried. Who's the worst captain? This is just right now. Who's the worst? Who's the most annoying? No, I'm
oh,
joking. I'm joking. I'm
I
joking.
can't share that information. Unfortunately, I have a list, but it is it will be shared in my memoir as commissioner after the event.
Well, a book I would read. A book I would read. Okay, so that's fun, and that's a good intro for everything about Worlds. Right. Okay, so let's talk about Team USA. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So, how did USA do last year? You were obviously part of the team last year.
Oh, uh, well, I was captain,
Yeah.
so it didn't do very well. We ended up eighth overall. I mean, we were fighting for a third until like basically the last round. We played Denmark, or not arch nemesis, our favorite nemesis, because we play. It seems like we play every year now at this point. And once again, they beat us. Well, I don't think they beat us the last 2 years ago, but it doesn't matter. They won last year, and they put us down to eighth. and then Sweden took third. So in a sense, we managed to hold the Danes from taking third and letting the Swedes squeak by in. So that was super nice. But we had last year we had a lot of drops last minute in the team, so it became fairly challenging to from a team structure and composition of armies to basically make up for that deficit. And this year we don't have any drops, and we have some big hitters coming back or playing this year who can actually make it. So we're looking for another podium finish at best. I think for Bill's perspective, he would like to win finally in 1 year so he can retire. I would like to win as well, but not because I want to retire, just because it would be nice to, or we're pretty. I think the internet, in a sense, gets the American meta as big, and we have some really good players. But the thing about Worlds is that it's not an event about individual, basically success. It's about a strategy and a group success. So it's a bit challenging to necessarily carry the team on your back. It's you can't do that as a single player, because every team has whatever their respective best players that can showing up to the year. So in a sense, it's you can't just club seals all day long and then basically in lucky pairing strategy and then just carry the team to the finish line. So
yeah, so essentially the setup for the question about how last year went was the follow up is did you as a team and as a community walk away feeling like that there were lessons learned and something that you could do better? Because from an outsider's perspective, I seem to have seen the US team really step up their prep and organization, is what it seems like. But I wonder if has that been something intentional? What's been the plan?
Yeah, so one of the big changes we did from last year is we added an extra in-person practice. It's challenging to get everybody already in one location at once for a weekend practice. Now we're forcing it in a 2-weekend practice situation, and the reason why is because we honestly we can be on Discord all the time. We can have weekly meetings, but you don't get the same value as an in-person practice as you would online, just because it's hard. Your attention span can be distracted even when you're on online calls, and in person it's like you're fully immersed. That's it. We're all hive minding this in a sense, and then that way it makes it easier for us to get better prepared. The other thing we changed from last year, I would say, is that we adopted a policy of not trying to force people to play armies they're not really well adjusted to, which was a big mistake last year we made, because I think it was because of drops. I was playing Seraphon, which was originally Gavin's army, and I hate Seraphon. It's the antithesis to my playstyle. I cannot play that army. I did very poorly with it by my own standards. And then we also forced Marcella, who's mostly a dock player, to play Legion of First Prince, because that was originally the other army we wanted to take that Anthony Trantinelli, I believe, was supposed to play at the time. And that was also a complete disaster. So for putting 2 players who have a very specific playstyle into totally opposite playstyle armies was something we're never doing that again. We're avoiding that like the plague. It doesn't matter how much prep you have, or how much games of practice. If you are playing an army that just doesn't mesh well with your playstyle, you're never going to be good with it. So
USA also has a problem which, similar to when we talked to Stuart earlier about Australia, you just have vast distances between a lot of your players. You're located on the West Coast. Most of the play that we see talked about happens on the East Coast, but there's massive scenes in Texas, which is where Gavin obviously plays, and then I'm sure something happens in the Midwest, but we never hear about it.
Well, you got Adepticons in the Midwest. Come on.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. How is that as it's a challenge also, because you said obviously the in-person meetups is very challenging, but those disparate communities. I mean, you seem to have a more connected community than I've ever seen before, which is good. But how has it been facing those challenges?
Yeah, one of the ways we're hoping that the team's success grows is through sponsorship and additional revenue increase, because we're trying to lessen the financial burden on the players to participate in these basically in-person practice, and the cost of one of the things about AOS Worlds for Team America, it's easily a $10,000 US investment to play for Worlds. It's just because between all the travel, the 2 in-person practice, the travel to Europe and so forth, it's just, yeah, you're looking at it. So financially, it's prohibitive for a wide spectrum of players, especially who play in this hobby. We would love to take the best players we can, but it has to be the best players with the financial means, right? That's what it comes down to. So we would like to lessen the financial means portion to enable that to happen more of a wide spectrum, more available. Like right now, the team is 3 players on the West Coast. Beasley plays in Seattle, which is 3 hours north by car from me, and then Tom Guan is from SoCal in LA, which is like a 14-hour drive from me south. So you can, from a scope of scale, that's how, even though we're on the West Coast, it's inaccessible necessarily.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 players in Texas. We have Gavin and Zach, who luckily are in Houston. So when we picked the first team practice was Houston. So everybody met up in Houston. So that already Veyseirre made it more affordable for 2 players, and also made it so that we had a quite a good logistic setup on ground for tables and terrain. And then we picked Pittsburgh for a second practice because half of our team are in striking distance of Pittsburgh, right, from driving. I mean, and I say striking distance, some of them still have to drive 6 hours to get there, but it is within a striking distance. And then obviously Roger and Bill Souza live in Pittsburgh, so another reason why we picked it was 2 players that are located there. So, but yeah, from a scale of size, it's hard to practice as a team, and we are very big on the team aspect. One of the things we don't want to replicate that we've seen from other teams is that they're a coalition of individuals who play as a team, versus no, we're going this as truly a team event. We want the team to be mesh well, to be in both personality and unison, but also because at the end of the day, while the game is decided by individual scores in a commutative setting, we're traveling a long ways, so we want to have as much fun as possible. For some of these folks who are flying into Wales, it's the first time they've ever had a passport. It's the first time they've ever left the United States. So we can't really we're not going to go at this from a purely business angle. We're here to just dominate, and so you can't go out, you can't drink, you can't have fun. No. We're gonna try to find that nice midpoint between being rowdy and still competitive at the table, man. So.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty exciting. I mean, your first matchup also is Ireland, who I just have just been speaking to the captain of Ireland, and he has said that they're bringing a newer team, a more refreshed team, and a team with more focus on playing the game versus rowdy.
Oh,
but I did say I was like I think it's kind of it's going to be kind of an old Texas shootout, sort of like everyone, you'd be like, do you want a beer? Round 1, Ireland versus the USA. Do you want a beer? It's no, we're playing a game. And then Ireland's yeah, us too. And I'm like, oh no. There might be a spark, and then it really falls apart. I don't know if that's we'll see. I don't know. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, since Noah Singh is in the team, he needs to go full Florida man to maximize his power at the table. I'm pretty sure he's going to be drinking some form of White Claw at the start of the event, fresh out of the gate. So I don't think we're going to not drink. I think we're just going to have to adhere to our drink matrix. Every player has a drink matrix on the team. So we just need to stick to close to our prep and planning here.
Okay, so. Perfect. Because you don't want to get too hammered going into twists and turns on round 2.
Don't worry, we have KO for twists and turns.
All right, perfect.
Don't play the game. It's all that matters.
Okay, so could you tell me who's in the team and introduce them to people who are listening at home?
Oh yeah. So I covered the West Coast folks. Matt Beasley, fantastic. If I'm going to describe them as
that's what I'd like.
Magic cards. Magic card decks.
Okay,
it makes it easier for everybody who probably is in this hobby, has touched at some point or not. Beasley's a blue control player. I am more of a bent player, which is more aggro with some control, some melee power. And then we have Tom Guan, who is multicolored. He'll play whatever, doesn't really matter. and then we have Roger Baker, which is pure, more of a black red deck. He's just kind of all aggro, kind of all the time. And then we have Zach, who is going to be our pure red player, basically pure aggro with KO. And then we have Gavin, who is our Seraphon player, who will be playing. I actually don't know what to call him from a color perspective, because it's not really a control list. It's not. It's like it wants to be a multicolored army, but it doesn't actually like. It's a toolbox list. It's a toolbox army, and then we have Bill Souza. Obviously, let's not forget Bill, Mr. Bill. He's playing multicolored. Well, he'll play anything, but he's playing Beast of Chaos this time around. And then Noah Singh, who's playing our other very red deck win approach of Gits. And I think that, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, that's everybody.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So, so obviously you got Ireland in the first round, but beyond that, what teams would you be excited to play against?
First
sorry.
round, or just in general?
In general, yeah. Which teams would you like to play against?
So since we travel such a long way, we'd rather just play all the top teams. It doesn't really matter for us, even if we win or lose. Like, since we travel all this way, you might as well just play the hardest matchup. Not to say like, hey, sorry guys, we don't want to play you. It's just that like, hey, we made this trek. Let's just get the. We would rather have England round 1, Denmark round 2, and then after that it's whoever kind of like is in the top of the profile. France round 3, and then we would love to play Canada, since we could play them all the time because they're next to us. But I think it'd be funny to just have a North American like challenge game, a Civil War game, and then let's see, what else? We probably Sweden. We had a really rough year last year with Sweden. First round opponents. We like to replay them, because I don't think they'll get away with that win they had last year, this year. So we would really like to also get that rematch in, obviously. So, but for us, it's England and Denmark are I think, for me personally, our favorite 2 opponent. We would rather play right immediately.
England, obviously the team to beat, based on like never losing, is the answer. Do you think that there are any other teams other than obviously you that are in hot contention?
Yeah, I think. France always is in hot contention. It's the bridesmaid. France is always the bridesmaid to this event. And maybe if any, they'll burst the bubble. But I would say more likely than not, I think I put my money on either Denmark or Sweden doing well, and probably taking like those two teams they're very tight game players. They're very well executed, and then they're with the right prep work and the right matchup, they'll probably end up like being close to striking distance of taking first. And I think in a game against the English team, I think Denmark has a pretty good shot of winning. So
interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I think that based on the conversations I've been having over the course of the weekend, the prep level seems to have gone through the roof. And it's not like the matches were blowouts. Some of the matches were blowouts last year.
right.
But I think also everyone now has cottoned onto the strategy of pairing into the battle plans as well as a secondary process. So that's maybe not another advantage that's in there. So it feels like it's a much more even playing field. Maybe we'll just sit here in like 4 weeks time with a capped England on 6 rounds, like just 120 across the board. But it'd be interesting. I'm quite interested in it. I think it's going to be. There's a lot there. There's a lot of game.
And I mean the way I imagine most teams are going to approach is that even though you're pairing on army versus and battle plan combination, you're always trying to force your opponent into 20-0 situations, right? With attacker pairs, that's like the fundamental rules of like the pairing strategy. Now the job of the defending players how to make this a non-20-0 game, right? And I think that's in some cases that's. What I really enjoy about this event is from a competitive player is that like you're putting in situations where like it's almost near like mission impossible, and so it's like how do you come up with ways out of you're just happy with like a 1-point loss, it's like you might as well just like basically it's like round 8 of LVO and you just basically won the finals. That's what it feels like to have a 1-point loss in these mission impossible games. So that's really why I enjoy the team. But yeah, you're talking prep, but at the end of the day, it's a dice game. Like we've had pairings go like perfect our way, and then like the complete script flew upside down. Anything can happen at the end of the day.
Yeah, I recognize that. Like, I think the pressure on the teams, but also the acceptance that it's going to go the way it goes is super fair. With that said, over the course, we got some pretty fun battle plans in play, rounds 2 and 4 across the
Yeah.
GHP. Like, we know this is a vote that went out and went really went very strongly in favour of the 4 battle plans. How do you, as a commissioner, but also as someone partaking in that, feel about like twists and turns and all that other stuff being played?
Yeah, so one of the reasons that we like the diversity, well, I've always liked the diversity of battle plans as a player is or captain, or is that it introduces the challenge of maximizing, you know, half the game is basically half the round is fought under the pairing strategy. Like if you basically, I think it makes more sense if you're trying to get to true player skill, if you're going to go for more of a uniform round missions and everybody plays the same mission. It like really focuses on player skill. So what ends up happening is most of the armies would show up to worlds would be like GT armies, basically, like what you would think you would see in a singles game. And then the pairings is about like basically like you'd see a lot less differentials and wins because you'd just be a GT army playing another GT army inside a battle plan, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like these missions like twists and turns, or we don't really play the natural game of AOS. I think it's interesting to throw them in the mix because it forces teams to have to come with a prepared plan to how to win or not lose those missions. And I say not lose because I think twists and turns is more about not losing more than winning. So yeah, no, I as commissioner I don't get a say into that.
Yeah, I know, I know.
we could
As a player, as a
propose.
player,
Yeah.
yeah. I was just wondering what your thoughts were as a player, and because you're in a unique role, right? You're while
Yeah.
also the commissioner, you're also a player, which is kind of fun because it's like the boss, the Captain of America's like, you're doing this, Jeremy. And he's like, well, actually, I'm the boss. Yeah.
Nope, doesn't work that way. if, the commissioner is beholden to the captain's will to an extent, like limited by the charter. Yeah, I would. You know what? You're right. I should start my own dictatorship, and then I will kick out all the captains and introduce my captains for each country that are my minions. Yes,
Perfect. That works. That works well. Okay, so we know the teams, we know who you want to play, which is pretty much all of it. Do you how do you feel that the organisation from Tom has gone? Let's take a moment to talk about that because I think from as the media person, me. I think Tom's been really excellent this year versus my experiences last year. So shout out to Tom. Done pretty well, right? Like been well organised. Are you happy with everything that's gone off through the organisation of the event?
Yeah, I think we kind of covered it earlier when I said basically I didn't have to do much because Tom did everything, and I'm taking credit as commissioner for his success. No, like Tom is fantastic. He did 2 roles basically this year. It might be head ref and run the event, or actually set up and run the event. Obviously, we were able to help him in the places he needed help, but it wasn't really that much help for the most part. Tom is a self-driving car in a sense. No, he fantastic. I hope that the event runs super smoothly, and I hope he does another bid for Amsterdam next year because I would love to see to continue. Whoever is the commissioner next year, if they have Tom as basically their event lead, I think they're set up for success no matter what happens. But yeah, I would hope so.
I agree. God, I did have a question about mate. I was in. 1 second. Let me just recollect myself. It
Sure.
was going to be. If I was going to track the Team USA and I wanted to know what was happening, how would I do that?
Our Twitter, I think it's Team America AOS, if I remember correctly.
It is.
We post everything on there. In fact, like we're gonna reopen our application process, and it's air quotes because it never actually closes. But our formal basically roster for 2024 would resume in maybe about 6 weeks after Worlds ends up. So we'll reopen that up. So look out for that. If you're interested to get involved in the team, you don't have to want to play or able to play in Europe or wherever it is next year. We have we have 100+ people in our Discord from everywhere in the United States, but it is like the application process is formally for the roster players. But at any point, if you want to participate or help us practice and so forth, feel free to ping us on Discord. Sorry, not Discord, Twitter.
We have had a question. Can people apply to be your personal assistant instead of a player?
Well, I think the French have basically defined that rule themselves without the council doing it. There is a limit amount how many players or people we want crowding a table, but we haven't really quite clearly defined what personal assistants mean. But the French show up with like a whole support army. So yes, sure, we will take applications.
Do you have a support team along with your team?
In Europe, no. We do it. We do over Discord. For the Minutemen program is what we call it, and that's like our assistants and are basically into practicing, helping us theory craft things and so forth. So we have a pretty wide bench into that, and we're also using it to train folks for potentially roster roles next year or future years. But in Europe, we do not have any assistants. We do have an assistant, which is Mike Vaganos. He's coming this year as our single assistant, and he will be doing the job of fairing beer or whatever liquid we need across the table for all the teams. I will probably be backup assistant because my games are going to end in like 1 hour. So I will be backup assistant. So I don't think I need a personal assistant this year.
We've had a question in the chat. Jeremy is the Worlds Commissioner and Talent Scout for the US. How do you view diversity within the hobby and those that play at Worlds? What's a challenging question, Phil? But I think a fair enough one.
Well, that's a great question. Well, I mean, from a diversity perspective, I would love to see more women participate in the hobby. Well, at least it's not like I don't see women. Like we took like last year's team was.
You had Marcella in the team last year. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry, Marcella, and Emma played.
And Emma, and then unfortunately this year we don't. Marcella will be in Europe as our reserve player, but she's also showing up to play in the singles, so that's really cool. But we don't have Emma this year in the team. I would love to see more women participate in the hobby, just period. And I know it's our job to make it more appealing for folks to come here, anyone to come here and play and make it open. But it would be nice to push that boundary a bit further, especially since like at the end of the day, like the point of this is like you're supposed to bring the best players and to the event. In some cases in America, if we decided that like we need this army on the team, and then we're gonna go chase after that player. And a lot, and in the States, we were lucky enough to have quite a few really good women players, and we have the ability to build that roster that way. But in terms of diversity outside of gender, basically, I'll be honest, it's hard to find African American players. The hobby's so prohibitively expensive. And then not only that, from a cultural perspective, it's kind of a pretty white-dominated hobby. So I think it's pretty scary for any African American player to just come in. We have obviously a lot of Asian players that participate, but from a purely U.S. perspective, I think the cost prohibitiveness of it makes it challenging. Like we have in my local area, technically Matt Beasley's local area, we have a really good player called Jack Ballard, who's also the host of The Rolling Ones, the YouTube channel for AOS content, and he's fantastic. It would be great to have him on the team, but I think that like literally the cost of participating in this makes it a very prohibitive event basically. And then we will often get criticized for we're trying to make the process as transparent as possible, so people know who's on the team and how to get on the team. But fundamentally, like the finance makes it like very restrictive. We often hear like this is an old boys club, and like we wish it wasn't so, but that's just like until we get to a fully funded team, like it won't be. Well, we will just pick the best player, no matter who, and not even who can afford it. We will still be stuck in this way until then.
Yeah, so it's a good question, but great answer. Appreciate that a lot. Thank you. And I know as a commissioner, one of your jobs is to get a bunch of new teams on. Like, for instance, Serbia and Greece are joining us this year as well, which is super exciting. And I know that there are more teams in the sidelines that eventually want to try and make it out. We just had an event in the Philippines. It would be cool eventually to get a team out from there. That would be cool as well. So that's definitely the goal, which is cool. Okay, so thanks, Jeremy. I think that's everything. Just my last point was who would you like to shout out? As you shouted out the Minutemen already, but anyone else that really helped with support for you personally, or Team America, like you want to shout out?
Ooh, let's see. There's so many people. I mean, I won't go through names, but I'll shout out to everybody who helps out in team practice, who's not even part of the program, to basically get table, get terrain. All I want to shout out our sponsors too. We did get a few sponsorships this year for Team America, between Corey from his events, and then Dom from Fabricator Forge. We were lucky enough to get semi-sponsors, which really helped offset the cost. And then finally, from purely, I really want to, now this is me stepping away from Team America, putting my commissioner role hat. I really want to thank you, Rob, for, basically putting the work you're doing into this, and making it help propagate, the event, and making it, a little bit more hype than it, as it should. Because at the fun of me, at the end of the day, it's a bunch of sweaty people getting into a room pushing plastic miniatures around. So thank you for putting some glamour into that reality. And then obviously I want to thank Tom from Alliance Open for all of his work. He did fantastic. And I will reinstate what I said earlier. Your captains are miserable. I hope to never have to deal with you folks again. Love you all, but goddamn, you're miserable.
Yes. Right now, also Jeremy has a YouTube channel you go check out. It's actually one of my favorite Age of Sigmar YouTube channels, if not my favorite Age of Sigmar YouTube channel on the internet, which I'll include in the show notes below if you want to go check it out. And there's some more stuff. You can record something today, I think, later today.
Yeah, I did. I published some videos earlier today. I'm in my quest to kind of promote content that is both useful and funny, and funny in a way of self-deprecation. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm going for useless and not funny. It's not going well. It's not going well.
I think you're nailing it.
Yeah.
You're nailing it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Right. Thank you very much.